All right, full disclosure, this is our second attempt at this video, because the first one, when I got back to the phone, it said it had closed 2 apps because of overheating. It is only 90-something today. It was 102 yesterday and 108 before that, so we'll see how filming goes over the next few weeks. I'm Sophie, and this is my Prius Vincent. The purpose of this series of videos is going to be following our sort of extreme weather retrofit for this vehicle. I have lived in this Prius before for about 2 years, from 2020 to 2022. Then I bought this property, which we're homesteading, living out in my tiny house again now, which is nice. I know people think of a tiny house as small, but if you've lived in a Prius for 2 years, that thing is spacious. But I will be back in the Prius again starting next month. I'm going to be moving out of state, or temporarily leaving the state, to go up north and do an apprenticeship for work, some extra training, and I will be needing to live in the car again. Problem is, previously I lived in this in Northern California, which can get a little chilly, like sometimes below freezing, but really not that cold. I will be living in this up in the northern sort of high desert right near the Canadian border, and that gets really freaking cold. The city that I'm going to, I've actually lived in before. The entire month of November, the first year that I lived there, never got above 0 degrees Fahrenheit. For those Celsius peeps, that's really cold, like 15-ish negative Celsius. And so I'm trying to figure out how to make this safe and more or less comfortable. And so we're going to be following that over the next few weeks. As you can probably tell from the quality of this image, I am not a videographer. I know absolutely nothing about how to make videos, and I'm not inclined to put a ton of energy or time into making these videos, because my primary priority is to get this thing livable. That said, the things I do know about are living in a car, 2 years in this Prius, and then on again, off again through my teens in a Subaru Outback station wagon, and building stuff. That tiny house back there was built primarily by my dad and me, with a great deal of assistance from friends, family, and community. And so I'm going to be trying to bring in the things that I do know about, and I appreciate your patience on the things that I don't know about. The whole purpose of doing these videos, and the only reason I'm putting any time into this, is because I have not been able to find any other examples of folks doing such a significant extreme weather retrofit on a vehicle this size. I've taken a lot of inspiration from stuff folks have done with vans, but small vehicles like this, really trying to get them manageable for such cold temperatures in the winter, and honestly such hot temperatures in the summer as well, I haven't seen a ton of. And I will reference the things that I have based this build on, in terms of the bits and pieces I've been able to pull together. All right, so that's enough me talking. Let's quickly switch over, and I'll give you a quick tour of Vincent as she stands at the moment, which is pretty much how she was when I started living in her in 2020. As you will be able to tell, I did not finish my original build because I needed to move in, and it's really hard to keep building after you move in. So there's a lot of things that we will be finishing up in this rebuild as well. All right, so heading on over, as you can tell, my very low-tech license plate covers. I haven't the foggiest how to black out a license plate on a video. So the only really new thing since I lived in her before is actually these window shades. So these windows are open all the way at the moment, and they have these very well fitted window shades, which hopefully you can see. I am going to need to do something about this little glass, because it makes it a tad obvious that the windows are open, and the goal with these is to make that as unobvious as possible, so that I can sleep in the car during the day, because my work involves night shifts, and not have people be aware that that car is in use. So you can kind of see through that window shade now from the inside, the amount of light that that provides and the ventilation that that provides. So here is the inside from this side. This is one of the main parts that I had never finished, as you can tell from that loose wood there. That needs to be installed around this little shelving unit. The shelving unit is also my electrical, which is going to be rather tricky to show you without putting the front seat down, and we'll do that later when we actually do electrical. But it's got a solar input, and then it also connects up to the alternator on the car, which we'll talk about a little bit more in the future when we start working on the electrical again. This is the platform, which sits on top of the seats, because you can't quite see, but back behind the seats is a metal piece that's not removable. It's part of the frame of the car, and that metal piece is as high, almost exactly, as the front of the seats. And so to create a level platform, it just made the most sense to do it over the seats. The downside of this is that I cannot sit upright in my Prius, particularly once the bed mattress is on there. I have to sit at an angle in order to not have my head hit the ceiling. Under here, as you can tell, I've not cleaned this thing out because it's going to get more messy. Oh, I remember, I put back the front seat. It's going to get more messy while we're working on it, so I may as well wait to vacuum till after. I've been experimenting with how far back the front seat can go without getting into... Oh gosh, that's hard to do while holding a camera. There we go, that should be plenty. Pull that front seat forward a little bit. Should free up our little shelf back here. Yep, there we go, so that it can open. The shelf, actually, the support for it removes quite easily like that, even while holding a camera. And so if you do want your passenger seat to go all the way back as far as it can, you got someone in the passenger seat with really long legs or something, that is still a possibility with the way I did this retrofit. I know a lot of people try to do their retrofit with no alterations to the original frame. I did not do that, and we will not be doing that with the cold retrofit. So you'll see that these are held in place with little screws like that. Back here is a bunch of tools hanging on the equivalent cross piece on the other side, and then my batteries and some breakers and other electrical pieces that we will get into in detail later. That lamp is eventually going to be installed up along this edge of the unit so that there's a lamp in the middle. All right, so this shelf goes back down, and the shelves on the other side do the exact same thing, fold up. And this looks back into the trunk, but to really look at that area, we'll go open the trunk. All right, so same space, different view. The main things to see back here, some people ditch the spare tire. I did not see any reason to do that because the height of the spare tire was not any higher than the height of that metal frame piece. You can actually see the edge of that metal frame piece right here. That's its highest point, and then in the middle it is lower through there. Comes up here. You'll notice this mold mark. We're going to be sanding that out. That is part of what we are trying to prevent with this cold weather retrofit. So even in Northern California, with temperatures barely getting below freezing, I still ended up with a lot of condensation under the bed. I ended up lifting the bed up onto some cardboard and some foam, and that helped. But insulating is really going to improve that. Insulating particularly under this platform, because then the platform will not be as cold. And condensation is primarily caused by warm, moist air coming into contact with cold surfaces. So we'll be sanding that out and then trying to prevent it in the future. The last thing to see back here, again, did not take out that spare tire. And so this just pulls up. You'll see it is made with 3 corner tabs that sit on top of little supports. And so it just pops up. I do have a piece of cardboard under it. It helps it to not make so much noise. Doesn't rattle on the road with that cardboard. And then there's my spare tire and my jumper cables. I actually tuck up my jack into the side space. You can just slightly see it right there. And there's actually a lot of additional space. We'll be taking up some of that space with the insulation during this project, but we may also be using some of that space for storage. All right, that is the basic tour of the Prius as she stands at the moment. Oh, here's one more of those screens. This one obviously does not allow airflow because the rear window of the Prius does not open, but it does block the sun and really decrease that heat gain. So it's also pretty perfectly fitted. It fits right up into these corners. And so we will be fixing up my old window covers a little bit and taking advantage of this window shade as something to mount those to in a way that should be pretty much completely light blocking. All right, guys, thank you so much for joining, and I'll see you again in our next video when we get started on the actual projects.